it's Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a marvelous day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. So the issue of immigration has heated up in America. Now it has become an important part of the political narrative. White Americans have never made a secret about how they felt about immigration. In years past, Black Americans pretty much stayed in the background and didn't speak much about immigration because the feeling was, well, it doesn't affect us that much. But they realized that that wasn't true. And then they started saying, these people are taking our jobs. And maybe not so much as actually taking the jobs, but undermining the workforce and depressing the wages so that now they are coming in and doing a job for much less than what the job is worth. And that's one complaint. But now you see what's happening in Chicago. Black Americans are having to take a very strong stand because their places of residence are being flooded with immigrants, and resources that should be going into the Black communities to restore those communities are going to the immigrant communities for food and shelter and clothing, and I guess money to get to the job. I don't know what it's for, but Black Americans are put in the position of having to take a stand. Now we know that former impeached President Trump is up 22% in the polls with Black Americans for various reasons. But this is unheard of in modern times, that the Republicans would get 22% of the Black vote. I don't think that's happened since before 1965. White Republicans have been complaining about this for a long time, and now Black Americans are complaining. So that's a sign right there of a real problem, and that Black Americans not only are feeling some kind of way about especially illegal immigration, but are put in a position of having to act on how they feel. I don't know if it's xenophobic or not, but when your livelihood is threatened and your place of residence is threatened, your community resources are being misused. You can call it anything you want to, but it's time to say something. It's time to speak, and it's time to do something. This is the poll that I put on my community tab about a year ago, and it says, how do you feel about immigration? 71% of you said that immigration undermines American workers. Only 29% of you said that immigration adds value to our economy. Now, when I first put this poll up a year ago, for the first 3 or 4 months, maybe even 6 months ago, it was closer to 50-50. It was always weighted toward immigrants undermining American workers. But this is overwhelmingly a negative opinion about immigration. So this is how Black Americans are feeling, because most of my viewers and subscribers are Black Americans. Now these things vary from place to place because we're not all having the same experience with immigrants. If you live in a red state, you're not having nearly as much trouble with immigrants and immigration as people who are living in these so-called sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. A lot of Black Americans are moving out of those sanctuary states and cities, and I don't blame them. You see, your resources that you have worked for and struggled for, and when we take into consideration how long it took us to even start getting on our feet, and now you got to compete with somebody from somewhere else who didn't put anything into America, it's understandable that you would feel some kind of way about it. And one thing that Black Americans resent, and I count myself in that number, is this knack that these poll takers and these right-wingers who want to present Black Americans in a negative light, always trying to compare Black Americans, descendants of slavery, with these immigrants. These immigrants come here, most of them come here from families that are already successful. They've had an entirely different experience than we've had. And there are those who would say, well, look how well they're doing. Why can't you do that well? Why are you always complaining? Because we absolutely are going to talk about our experience. But they want to highlight these immigrants who ran away from their countries to escape the hardship. But we had to go through the hardship because we didn't have anywhere to run to. But America is hell-bent on comparing us to these immigrants. And the reason this is done is because America does not want to acknowledge what has been done to Black people, the discrimination, the prejudice, and all of the other ills that we have been through in America. They want us to behave as if we and the white people were always on an even playing field. There was no slavery, no Jim Crow, no redlining, no segregation. We were just all one big happy family. They're just so much smarter than we are and worked so much harder than we do. And that's just laughable within itself. And this whole thing about comparing Black Americans to these immigrants is successful because these immigrants, for the most part, and I'm not saying all, but many, have been indoctrinated into anti-Black Americanness. And so they have these preconceived notions about Black Americans, stereotypes. And then here it comes. I know my name. I know my language. I know my country. I know my history. I know my tribe. I have culture. And this is what we get for advocating for these Negroes to come to the United States. And they don't seem to understand that it took courage, tenacity, and fortitude to recreate ourselves into a whole new group of people where we have our own identity, our own way of speaking, our own history and culture, and our own way of living for that matter, just like everybody else. And another thing about the African immigrants, many of them, and I would say most of them, come here from affluent backgrounds. They live in white neighborhoods and they go to white schools. And the reason we know that is because their parents are already educated and they come here in jobs where they make a decent salary and they live in white neighborhoods. They brag about being brought up in white neighborhoods, having all white friends, but yet and still Black Americans give them the biggest trouble. So you know they're lying. And that is really, really disingenuous. How is it that Black Americans are giving you the most trouble? You're having so much trouble with Black Americans when you don't even know any. That's one of the things. And another thing that they're doing with these Black immigrants that are pissing Black Americans off, they're making movies and television shows about high-achieving Black Americans, and they're casting Africans and Caribbeans in these roles. And Black Americans are rightly concerned about that too, because Black American actors need to work too. Furthermore, you cannot play a Black American better than a Black American. I don't give a damn where you went to school and where your training came from. And this guy that they've got playing Bass Reeves, he has no charisma. He's short. He doesn't look anything like Bass Reeves. He has no business playing that role. And then another thing about this dude, He's married to a white woman. I thought they were marrying these white women for a better life. These white women could help them. How is she helping him coming over here, imposing and fudging off the black American culture? This is how a lot of black Americans feel. Now, if you are a black American and you don't feel that way, I'm not talking about you. But I'm saying that everybody else gatekeeps their history and their culture. And these Africans and Caribbeans will come over here talking shit about black Americans without knowing anything about the history of America and how they got here. You will never have a white European migrating to America coming over here trying to throw off on white Americans and talking shit to white Americans. You would never find it. You would never find it. But that's because America has put out this image about us. They have this narrative going, which is propaganda and lies. Everybody has bought into it. And then they come over here, we're unsuspecting. Because we don't know you like that. But the poll tells the story. 71% of black Americans do not have a positive attitude toward immigrants. This is how a lot of black Americans are feeling based on what I'm reading in my comment section of videos when I do videos about this and what you hear black people saying on other social media platforms. It is a concern of many black Americans. Black Americans feel a certain way about these immigrants, regardless of whether they're white or black, and their fears and concerns are well-founded. And if you want to call it xenophobia, you can call it anything you want to. In a perfect world, African-descended people would be working toward better understanding and better ways of trying to communicate with each other and understand each other and respect each other where we are on our life's journey, understanding that we have a common destiny and a common enemy, whether we want to recognize that or not. And let me footnote that after the Europeans brought out all of the Africans in slave ships that they could, fanning us out all over the world, they met in Germany for the Conference of Berlin and carved up Africa, came into your countries and colonized you and imposed European ideology on you. And in both cases, physical and psychological warfare was waged on both of us. Now, I've had my say about how black Americans feel towards immigrants. Recently, I have been seeing videos that Africans have been talking about African Americans coming to their countries, trying to give advice and talking about Pan-Africanism when Africans are really concerned about their daily bread. So in the same way that I'm saying that Africans should have the right attitude towards black Americans when they come here, black Americans should also have the right attitude toward Africans when they go to their countries. Because either way, everybody need to get checked. If you come over here with a snooty attitude and you come into contact with a black American like that, you're going to get checked. And if a black American comes to your country with a snooty attitude, they ought to get checked. Everybody needs to get checked when they don't know how to act in a new culture. When you're in those people's country, you give them respect regardless. Okay, now y'all let me know what you think about the video. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Share the video. And as always, have a great day.